All right, welcome back to this is a very quick lecture for us today. We are going to be talking about dialogue, debate, and discussion. What are the differences kind of between these ideas and concepts? And we are also going to start diving into complex ideas related to values, attitudes, and beliefs. All right, so whenever we're attempting to navigate intercultural communication, one of the hardest ways to attempt to navigate that information is understanding that deep conflict happens when we are in a space where we're having value differences with other people, right? That becomes the problem when we have value differences with other people. And this activity helps you get to the core of your values, some of your attitudes, some of your beliefs about things and ideas. So moving on with that, let's look at our course competencies. We're going to understand self-awareness a little bit more through cultural identity. We're going to describe the influence of culture on the perception process. We're going to demonstrate strategies for resolving perceptual differences. We are going to identify potential barriers to intercultural communication. We are going to describe the elements of cultural conflict as well as cultural shock. All right, so with that, what better way to learn about all this stuff but to learn and talk about people and situations and alligators. So let's move on with the alligator river story. Once upon a time, there was a man named Abigail who was in love. Well, okay, before you tell you this story, I forgot. So for this assignment, what I'm going to ask you to do is you need to rank these characters from 1 most approved of all the way down to 5 least approved of. So you're going to have 5 different names. You're going to have Abigail, Gregory, Sinbad, Emily, and Tom. So there's 5 different people. Each of those people need a unique number, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 all need to be used next to those names. You can't rank 2 people as 2. Like one of those has got to be 2, one of those has got to be 3, whatever, right? All right. So you, in order to really do this, I would write down Abigail, Gregory, Sinbad, Emily, and Tom, because those are our players, and these are the people that we want to get opinions of, from your most approved to your least approved. All right. So hopefully I've been talking long enough for you to write those names down: Abigail, Gregory, Sinbad, Emily, Tom. Okay? If not, the names will come up as I tell you the story. Once upon a time, there was a woman named Abigail who was in love with a man named Gregory. Gregory lived on the shore of a river. Abigail lived on the opposite shore of the river. The river which separated the 2 lovers was teeming with man-eating alligators. Abigail wanted to cross the river to be with Gregory. But unfortunately, the bridge had been washed out. So she went to ask Sinbad, who was a riverboat captain, to take her across. He said he would be glad to if she would consent to spend the night with him, preceding the voyage. She went to her mother, Emily, to ask her advice. Emily did not want to be involved at all in the situation and told her she was an adult who could make her own decisions. Abigail felt her only alternative was to accept Sinbad's terms. Sinbad fulfilled his promise to Abigail and delivered her in the arms of Gregory. When she told Gregory about what she did to cross the river, Gregory cast her aside with disdain. Heartsick and dejected, Abigail turned to Tom with her tale of woe. Tom, feeling compassion for Abigail, assured her he would protect her and take care of her if she agreed to stay with him forever. All right, and here's the neat little GIF thing, picture thing of what my partner made for the river. If you do it click by click, you can kind of unveil the story with it. But I'll tell you the story one more time. And again, we want to rank 1 through 5. Abigail, Gregory, Sinbad, Emily, and Tom. So second time through the story, and this is where you want to make your rankings. Once upon a time, there was a woman named Abigail who was in love with a man named Gregory. Gregory lived on the shore of a river. Abigail lived on the opposite shore of the river. The river which separated the two lovers was teeming with man-eating alligators. Abigail wanted to cross the river to be with Gregory. Unfortunately, the bridge had been washed out. So she went to ask Sinbad, a riverboat captain, to take her across. He said he would be glad to if she would consent to spend the night with him preceding the voyage. She went to her mother, Emily, to ask her advice. Emily did not want to be involved at all in this situation and told her she was an adult who could make her own decisions. Abigail felt her only alternative was to accept Sinbad's terms. Sinbad fulfilled his promise to Abigail and delivered her into the arms of Gregory. When she told Gregory about what she did to cross the river, Gregory cast her aside with disdain. Heartsick and dejected, Abigail turned to Tom with her tale of woe. Tom, feeling compassion with Abigail, assured her he would protect her and take care of her if she agreed to stay with him forever. So that is the story. Now at this point, stop what you're doing, and I want you to head to the Alligator River assignment and do your first post. So again, stop this video, go to the Alligator River assignment, and do your first post. I'm not going to talk for a while to give you an opportunity to get over there and do that post. Okay, so you should have done your first post, right? And you've responded to other people, right? Responding to other people is very important as well. So again, don't come back to this unless you've responded to the amount of people that you need to respond to in order to get this assignment done. So again, pause this, get over to the place that you need to go, and then we're gonna continue on. So I'm gonna give you a little bit more silence. So, all right. Now that you have posted your 1 through 5, most approved, least approved, and then talk to other people about like, why did they post this person here? What areas did you agree? What areas did you disagree? We can move on, right? So you've had to done your responses too to continue on with this video. All right. So we are going to start to analyze the difference between dialogue and the difference between debate. So what are the skills that you need for debate? Some of the skills you need are quick thinking. You need to be able to think very quickly on your feet. You need to be loud because you want to actually project your voice above other people so you can actually be heard, right? So being loud is very important. It's also very important to sound confident. You want to sound very confident when you talk about things. You want to make sure that it's very obvious that you sound confident. You want to know how to counter other people's arguments, right? So if someone says, hey, this is this thing and this thing is this way, you want to be able to counter that argument. You also want to know how to disprove other people. You want to talk about how they're wrong. We don't want to ever talk about how they're right. We more want to talk about how they're wrong. And then the last thing you want to do is be able to argue that you are correct. So you want to, again, it doesn't matter how right the other person is, you want to look correct with other people. Now looking at skills needed for dialogue. Skills needed for dialogue is you need to have the ability to listen, right? You want to be able to listen really well. You also want to be able to see and understand multiple points of view, right? So you want to be able to understand different people in different ways. You want to have a wide perspective of understanding, right? So again, you want to understand different points of view, different ways people see things, and be able to see the validity in what they're talking about when they talk to you about things, ideas, or issues. You also want to talk about the willingness to be able to see things differently. It's very important that you be able to see things from a different perspective and a different point of view. You also want to be willing to work with others. You want to be willing and able to work with different people, because that is also very important. And then lastly, you want to be able to attempt to seek understanding with other people. Seeking mutual understanding is also very important. So finally, what are the purposes? What do we attempt to do when we're doing dialogue and debate? When we debate, we're trying to win, flat out. We're trying to just win and make it so our way is the way. You also want to persuade anybody that happens to be watching this incident. So anybody that's watching stuff, you want to be so persuasive that they're like, yep, that makes sense. That's how I see things too, right? The other thing that you want to do is prove people wrong. You want to be able to show how other people are incorrect with their thoughts, ideas, and opinion. And then you also want to attempt to win anybody that's watching over to your side. So that's what debate attempts to do. Now, why do we dialogue? We dialogue to listen. We dialogue to attempt to co-create an understanding that the way you see things has validity, understanding the way that I see things has validity, and then we understand things more fully. We dialogue to gain more perspective, so we can understand things from a different point of view. We dialogue to see things differently, right? Because we might be so used to seeing things one way, we need the opportunity of another point of view to see things differently. You dialogue because it's going to help you work with other people who are different than you, right? It's going to create a place of an opportunity where you can actually get to a place of mutual understanding. And lastly, I told you we were going to talk about dialogue, debate, and discussion. I didn't write anything about discussion down, but discussion, for the purposes of what we're attempting to talk about here, is a conversation that you're really just not invested in. Like, you really don't care. You're kind of just talking to talk. It doesn't really make a difference to you one way or the other. Sometimes when we're bored in a discussion, we'll attempt to argue just because we're bored. But really, it's any conversation that you have that you're sort of mentally checked out for. It's a conversation that you're just talking about to talk about, but like really you don't care. And really you're not invested. You're just talking to talk, right? And we've been in conversations with other people who have used this tactic and technique. And it's really frustrating because you're like, wait, I want you to care about what we're talking about. And I'm like, whatever, man. Or they're just messing with you. Or sometimes people will try to attempt to play the devil's advocate. One of the best quotes I've ever heard is, the devil doesn't need an advocate. I love that quote. And there's value in seeing things from another perspective. But arguing for the bad idea doesn't always make a lot of sense, and I don't think it takes us to better. So with that, that's all I have for you for dialogue, debate, and discussion. So with that, look at the debrief for the Alligator River, and that's what you will do as the second part of this assignment. I hope you're well, and I hope this was something that helped you learn and get a sense of how to see and understand things differently.